Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table podcast with PJ and Mike. Now, please find yourself a seat at their table.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Cool Kids Lunch Table. I'm PJ.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth installment of the Indiana Jones saga.
Yeah, and we're actually recording this in PJ's new future comic book store.
Yes, we are surrounded by sheetrock, 2x4s, and tools because construction will be starting very quickly. But for now, this is our makeshift recording studio.
Yeah, so we're popping its cherry tonight.
That's right.
In terms of recording. And folks, we're really excited about reviewing this film because we just came out of the theater.
We just left the theater. The cool kids saw this movie together.
Right, so it's fresh in our minds, and we just took some notes, so it's not completely going to be an impulsive review. But it's kind of fresh in my mind and in our minds, and I'm excited.
Yeah. We want to start with childhood memory like we always do?
Yep, let's do it.
I have one for Indiana Jones. It's actually not a movie.
Oh, okay.
My childhood memory of Indiana Jones, the first time I realized how much I love this character, was at Disney World.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that stage show, the
Yes.
Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, whatever they
Yeah.
called it?
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen that show every time I go to Disney World. It has not changed. The plot hasn't changed. The cheesy, park effects haven't changed, and I still love it every single time.
Yeah, I think they changed it slightly where, now you're, filming a movie.
Yeah.
Where you start watching, it's still a stunt show,
Yeah.
but now they do it as if it's like a stunt show. Like, okay, we're filming
Right.
Indiana movies now, and everyone comes out. Where the other one was they had an ambiance, and it was like a story, which they still do, but like I said, it's more of a...
They
that's
pull the
funny you
people
say-
from the crowd, and they're like the extras or something like that now. Yep.
And it's funny because I always went to the stunt show. I never been on the ride until I went to California. I didn't get to California until,
Yeah, they don't have the ride in Florida. They only have the ride in California.
That's an
and
awesome
it's a great ride.
That's a very great...
I think that ride, although I'm not 100% sure, I think it's the same mechanics as Dinosaur.
Yep, it's a reskin.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a real shame because that ride is...
It's way better as Indiana Jones.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
100% better. But that's my earliest memory of Indiana Jones. I think I may have seen the stunt show before I saw any of the movies.
Oh, wow.
And then because I went to Disney as a kid, I was the first time must have been 5, I don't know, I was real little. So I'm definitely thinking I saw the stunt show first, thought it was so cool, and then went back and watched all the movies as a kid and just kind of fell in love with the character. I actually think it's Harrison Ford's best role is Indiana Jones. He's my favorite character in Star Wars is Han Solo, but I think Indiana Jones better character.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think my earliest memory is that. I think almost the same exact thing as yours, I think I saw the stunt show and then I saw the movies afterwards. So,
all right, let's get into it. This will be a spoiler-free review. We're not going to spoil the plot. We know the movie just came out, so we don't want to spoil it for you. So we're just going to talk about the tone, some of the impressions it left on us, things like that. But we won't really spoil too many plot points or anything like that. All right, what do you think? You go first.
Okay,
What's your immediate thought?
All right, so listeners, I have to say something. Okay, people were making too much of a big deal with the previews and I guess the drama behind the scenes ahead of the reshoots. This movie is fine, folks. This is fine. You know what? I'm going to say it. I would recommend this film. I would say, look, if you're a big indie fan, see it in theaters. You know what I mean? Or if it's on, Disney Plus eventually, watch it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad... Look, right off the bat, this is not a bad film. It's 100% way better than Crystal Skull. 100%.
I agree with that. It's way better than Crystal Skull. I borderline hated Crystal Skull.
Yeah, I don't like the movie at all.
And this movie doesn't jump the shark the way that movie did. I mean, that movie was riddled with aliens and all sorts of weird shit that didn't feel right.
Everything about that movie, everything just felt off. Harrison Ford felt off.
Right. Almost like he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, he felt just awkward. His whole character always felt awkward. And Shia LaBeouf, that was kind of like his prime. I know he's become
his prime.
Right, but he had the transfer. He was kind of like in he did a movie with Brad Pitt, like a military thing. I can't think of what it was called, Fury or some shit.
Yeah,
maybe
it
maybe it was a different one. But
that movie,
but he was fine, and the script wasn't great. You know what I mean? That movie was clunky. You know,
that was
it had
not
some
great.
decent moments. I'll try to be fair, but
Overall, not
that's
a great movie.
That movie's a
This movie is way better than number 4. I mean, look, in terms of ranking these movies, I mean, it's not an Indiana Jones ranking episode, but just real quick, I would probably put this as the 4th best. I don't think it was better than the original 3. I think maybe just a hair. I won't use the word worse, but maybe Temple of Doom was a hair better. I think just because it has more nostalgia for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of plot and pacing, it's not that far off.
Yeah, so you can almost. I even put in my notes. It's like it's almost. I said almost on par with Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
It has a lot of similarities.
Yeah,
you know?
I think plot points and pacing and tone, it's very similar, I think, to Temple of Doom. Some people might say that's a bad thing because I know a lot of people like to hate on Temple of Doom. I don't hate on Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
It's not Raiders of the Lost Ark. Very few movies are Raiders of the Lost Ark. If you're going to compare it to that, of course, every movie's not as good. Raiders is one of the best films ever made, so obviously nothing lives up to it in the rest of the franchise. This was not bad.
No way. And I think Temple of Doom has its dark moments. That movie's also a little bit more. They turned the dial more on on the cheese.
Yeah.
You said the cheese and corn.
Yeah.
Where I feel like this movie actually has more of a serious tone.
It does. I agree.
So
yeah.
This movie's actually more serious.
Yeah, there was not a lot of cheese and corn in this movie. This
No way.
This had the right tone of an Indiana Jones movie. When you watch it, especially the beginning, and like I said, we're not going to spoil the plot, but the beginning feels like classic indie.
Yep, absolutely.
It feels like when this movie starts, and you're like, I'm watching an Indiana Jones
the
movie.
The whole intro is better than the entire Crystal Skull.
Oh yeah,
the whole thing.
That first maybe 20, 30 minutes is like, it looks great. It's shot beautifully.
Yep.
The effects to de-age Harrison Ford is, you see it in the trailer and you're like, oh, that looks like a young Harrison Ford. When you see it in the movie, wow, it's like they went back in time and got this guy and brought him back to the future because it didn't look. Look, when they brought back like people from Star Wars, when they did that, it looked kind of.
They call it the uncanny valley.
Yeah, it didn't. It didn't look right. It looked fake. The mouths didn't look right when they were talking. I didn't get that at all from this. This looked like a young Harrison Ford acting. The only, I don't even call it complaint, criticism, observation that I noticed is young Indy in that film, and this current, Indy 5, still sounds like old Harrison Ford. They didn't de-age the voice, and it was a little jarring at first because I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like young Indy. Again, I wouldn't call it a criticism, just an observation. What are you going to do? The man's is not young anymore. And I kind of like that they didn't use a different actor. They kept it Harrison Ford. I appreciate that and respect it. You just notice it.
I think also we talked about too before, PJ, is about tone. And I want to say, I saw some early reviews truthfully, I didn't let any of those cloud my judgment. Like, I was really excited to see this. I was thrilled just to relax in it there. I haven't been in the theater since John Wick 4. So it's been a long time. But I love James Mangold. I love this director. And some people are saying, like, oh, he's like a safe director. No. Let me just tell you some of the films. I'll tell you the ones I've seen and his movies in general. But Copland, that's not a safe film.
No, that's a great film.
If that movie came out today, it's still relevant.
Yep.
I mean, wow.
That movie's great. Stallone's great.
Kills Leota, Harvey Keitel.
Such a great movie.
And a forgotten gem, really. Then he came out, Girl Interrupted.
Another great movie.
That's a badass movie.
Yep.
I never saw this film, but you have Hugh Jackman, Kate and Leopold.
I never saw that.
I think it's like a comedy. I think a romantic comedy. Identity. I saw that. I remember that's like a weird kind of a mystery or like a science fiction horror film. Walk the Line. Great film.
Walk the Line is, of all these, musical biopic movies that they make, is the best one.
I think that and Ray are the best ones.
Yep, I think, and Joaquin is great in that movie. And again, James. This also shows the range James Mangold has as a director, because all of these movies are not even close to being similar.
Yeah,
and this guy, they're all different, and he kills it each time.
Yeah, and I want to just. The next ones after that, he did Night and Day. I never saw, but that's with Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise. He did The Wolverine, with Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine. Then he did Logan, which was...
I didn't realize he did The Wolverine and Logan. I thought he just did Logan. Okay.
And he did one of my favorite films of 2019, which was Ford versus Ferrari. That movie was badass.
Yep.
And then now he just did Indiana Jones. So
he's got a great catalog.
This guy is legit. I don't care what anyone fucking says.
Yeah. He's a good
This guy is
director.
a great director. And
he has vision. And when you watch the movie, you can tell he goes into it with a plan. It's not, a mashup of different ideas. It's not disjointed. He goes in with the vision and a plan, and he executes it.
Yeah.
And it's very, very noticeable in his movies.
And you compare, like, because Crystal Skull was by Spielberg. He made that. He directed it. And that movie has like a weird glass, like a veil. I don't like how maybe it's shot digitally. I don't know. But I'm not a cinematographer. This film has that kind of gold, classic touch. It really feels like this.
Especially in the very beginning.
If you saw this right after, let's say they never made Crystal Skull, this one, it would almost, you can kind of, obviously it's more modern in terms of
But you can
filmmaking,
connect it to those original movies. It feels...
Yep, absolutely.
It almost, I don't want to say sepia tone, but it has that, this movie takes place, I mean, if you want to call it a spoiler, but there are Nazis in this movie. He always fights Nazis. That's Indiana Jones' thing. And it feels like it's a movie that takes place in that time. It has the look and feel of that time.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like drawing where Crystal Skull, he actually fights the Russians in that.
Right.
Temple, he fights, I don't know, what is it, the tribe? I can't remember exactly. It's been so long, but no, I think this movie felt very good.
Yeah, I agree.
What else to say, folks?
This
movie was not a bad film. The hype right now, it's like a hot button thing. Oh, it's like she's a girl boss. They're trying to emasculate him.
I didn't feel that at all.
No way. You can argue that for the Star Wars films and all that. We talked about that, and check out that review and all that. But this movie, I did not feel like Harrison Ford was emasculated in any way.
He didn't play second fiddle to anybody.
Nope.
He was the star of that movie. Mm-hmm. He was 100% the star of that movie.
Right.
You mentioned Star Wars. What's crazy is this is the same producer. It has Kathleen Kennedy.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Kathleen
Kennedy produced a mess of a Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Yep.
And yet somehow pulled this together and made an acceptable, perfectly fine Indiana Jones movie that doesn't take away. I'm not going to say it adds a tremendous amount to the legacy of Indiana Jones, but it doesn't take away from it.
It does not absolutely. It does not tarnish it. If Crystal Skull definitely, I think put a real black eye on it.
But not this.
No way. This one, if anything, redeems it.
Yeah,
and I think it ends it off. I'll just say very romantically.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel. It just feels very joyous. That's all I'll say.
It doesn't. Nothing in the movie felt forced.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, look. Are there negatives to the movie? Yes. Does this movie go about a half hour too long, 40 minutes too long? 100%. There is a lot of fluff that could have been cut out that would have made this a tighter movie. There are some plot lines they introduce that they don't resolve. This happens in every movie. It's not like this movie is the only movie guilty of having unresolved plot lines or unneeded plot lines. You could have made this a tighter movie, which maybe would have helped add to the legacy of Indiana Jones a little bit if you would have shortened it. This is the second longest Indiana Jones, I think, by only a few minutes. The original ones, I think the first three, I think were all under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right? So they're tighter films, which is why they're so good. This one is a little longer, so I felt it. I felt like, ooh, this movie needs to speed up a bit.
I agree. I didn't feel, I'll tell you this, I didn't feel bored. I never felt bored. I'll tell you that. I wasn't bored. I did feel like, okay, this is getting a bit too long. But I never felt bored, though. I definitely most Hollywood movies today all the blockbusters are needlessly too long. But
Absolutely.
This one did not feel. I can't say it was boring, though. It was definitely not
there was
boring.
a lot to watch. There was a lot to take in. The action scenes were filmed very well, and they felt like classic Indiana Jones. They didn't have him doing something that you wouldn't expect Indiana Jones to do in those movies. It's not like all of a sudden he's like, I don't know, on a hoverboard or anything like that.
And I felt I was gonna say too. Another thing I like about this film is look. Indy is old now, but they don't. Does he still kick ass in it? Yes, folks. But it's not like Crystal Skull where he's on doing something totally off the wall.
Right.
This is obviously I don't think the average 80-year-old or 70-year-old is gonna be able to do some of these things, but it never gets to the point where this is not a spoiler, but let's say he's fighting a henchman. If there's someone who's stronger than him, or he's gonna try to outwit them, or he's gonna avoid that fight. That's it. That's not a spoiler at all. It's just more common sense. It feels like the action's more for his character's age. He's not gonna be.
They reference his age being older, but they don't make it a point to
goof on him.
Goof on it, or just keep calling him old or anything like that. It's part of the film because Indiana Jones is obviously not a young man anymore, but it plays into the plot and they do it well.
Yeah,
it feels
they never
like
make him look like a fool. Remember in the Crystal Skull? There's one point I think in the beginning of the film, he swings on a rope in a warehouse, and then he swings backwards, and they're making him into a tool, making a fool out of him. This They always
No.
keep the integrity. Like
Yeah.
it's like okay,
Had a
I'm
good-
70
good-
years
good
old.
tone.
It's like someone who's like 70 years old. A 7-year-old boxer cannot beat up a 40-year-old boxer, right? They
Well, unless
just-
that boxer is Rocky, because then he
Right.
could beat
Okay.
everybody.
Right. Touche. Well, yeah, they're not gonna be able to beat someone in their prime.
Right,
Right.
right,
A
right.
retired boxer can't beat a guy in his prime. But
Exactly.
he knows, okay, I can't win this fight. I gotta outsmart this
Right.
dude. But
And they do it in a really good
Mm-hmm.
way. I can't say anything bad about the way they treated Indy. They treated him with respect.
Yep.
I just think it could have been tighter.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest criticism of the movie is it could have been tighter. Again, I don't want to spoil any of the plot points. The end of this movie was a little too much for me, and I can't spoil it because I don't want to. I want people to still go and see it. I don't want them to have my.
Are you
my
saying
spoilers.
it's? I guess this is spoiler free too. Like like action set piece, not the end. Like the action, like resolving the thing.
That
you
was
know?
a bit much for
I
me.
agree, but it's still a lot better than
It's
Aliens.
still a lot better than
and,
Aliens. I agree with
you
that.
know, like some
It-
kind of weird,
To me, it just kind of felt like
they got the alien from Tool.
yeah, he's coming down.
Lateralis starts playing.
It's just there was none of that. You know, it's the alien from like American Dad shows up. It was right.
That's it. Actually, he looks like him.
Right. It wasn't that. I just.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he took inspiration. I don't know when American Dad came out,
but it
but
looks
because
that.
Seth Rollins, he's a fan of
Yeah,
Indy and all that
yeah.
stuff. So
It just felt. I know there are supernatural elements
Yeah.
usually
Yes.
in all of the Indiana Jones movies, like Kalima and the guy, and they're ripping hearts out, and then they have the guy's face melting because of the Ark
Right.
of the Covenant. So I get there's sort of that supernatural, science fiction-y sort of element
Right.
to these movies. This was, I think, just a hair too much. Where I was like, I don't know if this is the path I would have
Right.
gone.
No, I guess comparing it to Crystal Skull, because we know, like we said, folks, it's not going to be better than the original trilogy.
Right.
But in terms of like comparing to Crystal, I like this story way better than the Alien one, and I think
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And I think, truthfully, I was worried about the time travel aspect. I was like, because that's not a spoiler. Even though it was Dial of
Right,
Destiny.
Dial of Destiny,
You know,
right.
But I can honestly say the time travel, I thought it was actually done pretty well. I got to say. And
it
how
was
it was.
probably done better than it was in The Flash.
Right. Yeah. And
There was no spaghetti.
Yeah. And I think it was, I'm trying to just spoil it for I think the way they resolve it was fine. Honestly, I think it was fine. Look, you can break balls for any movie. You can break Back to the Future's balls.
Of course you can.
But this movie, it's really does not deserve it. I thought they did, the time travel, I think it was actually well done.
I just think it was a bit much. Wasn't bad. For me, I don't know. I don't know how I would have done it differently. I can't say that I can go in here and would have done anything differently than they did. Because that was the plot of the movie.
Right.
I just think maybe a bit too much for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I'll get to that later. I want to talk about this part because this is what people bugging out the actress's name Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Everyone's bugging out. Oh, she's the next Rey Skywalker. She's gonna be this.
No, I don't get that.
Look, was she a brat in the film? Well, that's kind of her character.
That was her character.
But she never felt like a Mary Sue.
No.
She just felt like her character. I felt like she wasn't trying to replace him. I didn't get that vibe at all.
No, not at all.
This was she's just a.
I'll even go a step further is to say if Han Solo interacted or had a lead to play against in Star Wars, if Rey was more like this character, I think it would have made Star Wars better. I think the chemistry between these two actors was way better than Daisy Ridley and Harrison Ford. I think.
And that's not for Daisy to defend her. I don't think it was her fault.
No, I don't think it was her fault either. I think she was put into a movie that needed a lot of help, and she did the best she could.
Script. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think if she would have gotten a better script, I think she would have been much better.
Yeah.
They just should have written her character more like.
Yeah, and I think. Phoebe Waller wasn't like girl boss. I did not get that vibe. Anyone who's saying that, any reviewer who's saying that, they're just trying to find clout. They're trying to just, that's not accurate at all. It was honestly, it was just fine.
You know who
there's
was
a little,
great?
There's a tinge, maybe a little tinge. There's like 1 or 2 lines. Okay, like slight girl boss. Okay, but it was not. It wasn't like
No.
a drilling like they do a lot of movies. It
I
wasn't like
thought she was.
It wasn't like Captain Marvel. That
No,
was like
no. I
vomiting.
thought she was
It
fine in the movie. I
disgusting.
thought she was very good.
She was good. She was
I think
honestly,
a scene stealer in this movie is the villain.
Yep,
Mads Mikkelsen
Dude, every
is
time
great.
that guy's in a film,
He's great.
He's just badass. I mean, he's just owns. He's just such a quality actor, and like you said, he was awesome. And when he gets on the screen, you're like, okay, shit's gonna go down.
Yeah, and he was really good. I liked his character quite a bit. The first time I really actually got to see him act, but like when I really started to realize how great an actor he was when they made that Hannibal TV show.
I never saw it. I know him. I guess his breakout role would be Casino Royale.
Yeah, probably.
The blood tier. Then he kind of took off from there. But he's an exquisite actor.
Oh, he's great. If you get a chance to watch that Hannibal TV show, I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. It probably is.
Yeah.
I would recommend that. That's a great show. The cast in that show is great. The storyline is great. That's one of the few times they went back and redid something. And is it better than Silence of the Lambs? Probably not. But is it on par with Silence of the Lambs as a retelling of some of those characters? 1,000,000%. I wish they'd bring that show back and finish it. So anyway, I mean that's the first time I got introduced to Mads Mikkelsen, and I think he killed that role and he killed this role. He does villains or cerebral characters very well, and that's the kind of character he had here. I felt like he was a more cerebral villain.
Right. I know, like I said, I don't want to be jumping around, but the new Harry Potter films, the Fantastic Beasts. I haven't seen the new one. The second film in that series was horrendous.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't like the casting of Johnny Depp. I thought that was not because of what happened with Amber.
No, I don't care.
I didn't want him to be in it at all. I'm like,
he wasn't the right choice for the character.
They should have had him from the beginning.
It would have made the movie way better.
I haven't seen that new one, but I could just tell he's going to elevate that film. But going back to Indiana Jones, I don't know if I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. I thought Harrison Ford was awesome in this film.
Absolutely.
He felt very, I could tell he was very invested in this film. Maybe not the one with Crystal Skull, man.
No, I think he was like forced into being that movie.
He felt so flat in that film.
Yeah.
He felt like a piece of cardboard.
I think he didn't want to do it. I just feel
maybe
like
he didn't like the script. I try to sometimes put myself in an actor's shoes and like you ever get like a like when you're in school, back to school, guys. Remember you like got stuck doing a group project with kids you didn't like,
and you're like, I gotta do this,
or kids like maybe you're a hardworking student, and you're with kids you're gonna slack off, and you're like, I cannot save this ship.
Right.
This ship is going down.
Yeah.
And so maybe during the film you kind of see that.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, he had to play off of
Shia
LaBeouf, and that didn't.
Right. But even
to
fair him, I think you can't make, as our former guest said, Mike Schleib, you can't make shit writing. You can't make a bad script good, no matter who you are. De Niro.
Right. There's only so much you can do.
You can't do it.
And Shia LaBeouf's certainly not good enough to elevate something. I'm nothing against him, but he's not an A-list actor by any stretch, I don't think. And he had his struggles with making that movie. He had such a big part in it.
Right.
Look,
but
this movie leaps and bounds better than Crystal Skull. The reviews are unfair. There are so many bad movies in the world. To hate on this one that much,
no way.
I mean, they're way worse.
Like we said, this is by an exquisite director who's totally underrated, underpraised, and well acted. This script was I don't have the gentlemen's names, but it's the guys who wrote Ford versus Ferrari.
Okay.
From what I know, and the guy's name is David. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Koepp. And that's the guy where I have it on my notes here. Hold on, folks. This is the same dude who also probably co-wrote these films, but he's done some movies like, I don't know, Jurassic Park.
Wow.
He's done Carlito's Way.
Okay.
I think he co-wrote them. But said he's been involved in Mission Impossible. I'm naming the big ones: Panic Room, Stir of Echoes, Spider-Man.
But there's some clout and credibility here. This person knows how to write.
Yeah, and he did this same dude also did Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but he's this guy's, and like Angels and Demons and like some Death Becomes Her, Toy Soldiers. Also, I mean, look, any artist is gonna have hits and misses in there. There's few perfect people have perfect records, but
right.
I gotta say the script was really fine in this film.
Yeah,
It needed to be edited, and that's not
That's-
a writing. That's someone in the editing room should have cut this down.
That's
Maybe
exactly
they felt,
what it was.
we don't want to reveal the scenes because PJ and I, PJ really brought it up. Maybe in the future we'll have a spoiler reveal.
Right.
Maybe we'll rank the films.
We don't want to spoil it for you before you see it.
But there's one thing I think when you'll see it, you'll be like, okay, afterwards, okay, they kind of probably could have erased it, but it wouldn't affect the plot, But I think they wanted to help set up an action scene.
I agree.
But-
They definitely put that in there to give you a little action because leading up until that part, it was a bit of a lull in the action, and I think they wanted something to just spice it up, get
Yep.
your interest back, and then
Yeah.
because there needs to be peaks and valleys and ups and downs, and that's kind of what they did. There were probably better ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the all Indiana Jones movies are like this. They find a thing. They're looking for a thing. While they're looking for that thing, they find another thing,
Right.
and then that thing points them to another thing,
Right.
and that thing points them
And
to
this-
another thing,
and this-
it follows that path. I think they just had to look for one too many things in this movie. That would be that's what I think.
I guess for me, I'm a sucker for that kind of like treasure hunting.
Right.
I felt like this treasure hunting was way better than Crystal Skull, and I think movies that are that's tried to done it. What was that movie called? It's actually a superhero movie, Aquaman. They
Aquaman.
try to do that
They
too.
did, they
but I
did.
kind of like that movie. Somewhat charming for me for some reason. I
The
don't know
first
why.
Aquaman movie, yeah, it's a very fun
I don't know.
ride.
But,
It's not a perfect movie either, but there's a lot to like in that movie.
Yeah, and this movie had that energy, PJ.
Yeah.
It had that
I
charm
agree.
to it. This movie has charm. I can say there's nothing about this feels forced. It doesn't. None of this girl boss. It didn't feel anything about preachy.
No.
Not at all. It didn't say girl power. It didn't say anything
And
like
they
that.
give
If
you
anything that
villains you
turns
can
you off in
root
that
against.
department.
They are not. A lot of movies fall into this trap where we're humanizing the villains, giving the villain something where you feel for them.
Nope.
This movie,
Yep.
you're not rooting for the villain because you're not going to root for a Nazi.
Right.
So you have someone you can go in there and say, I can't wait till they get beat up.
Right.
I can't wait till they lose the fight because it's someone you can hate. There's no redeeming
Right.
quality to a Nazi. So you're
Right.
going in ready to dislike them and you're okay with them not having a
Right.
tragic backstory. You right into
Yes.
right into a villain that has no redeeming qualities, which I think is something lost on movies lately.
Yeah. And you know what, PJ? I think this movie does have a message. I think it does.
Okay.
I think it does. I think maybe this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say it anyway. I felt like this movie, especially towards the end, this isn't a spoiler, but I guess when you see it, you'll understand. Like, I felt they kind of respected people who were elderly, especially in in American society. I think we goof on the old, we even goof on our president, whatever side you're on, we
Right.
should respect. All of us have grandparents, if we're lucky to still have them, and I feel like now, like a lot of films, they goof on them, they're slow, they're useless. In this movie, he was none of those things.
No.
He was smart, he was capable, he was brave.
He was charming.
Yeah.
He had that Indiana
Right.
Jones swagger.
And he also, sometimes life sucks.
Yeah.
And getting old is not fun, but doesn't mean you can't go on adventures. It doesn't mean
Right.
you go out like a punk kicking your tires,
There's a scene in the first, I don't know, half hour or so of the movie where we'll call him older Indiana Jones, current time Indiana
Yeah.
Jones is shirtless. And they don't
Yes,
they
exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
They don't CGI him to look like a
ripped.
young buff man.
Yep.
He is his natural self, and he's in good shape for someone Harrison
Yes,
Ford's age.
absolutely.
But they don't try to hide what he looks
Yep,
like. He's just who he
Right,
is, and,
yeah.
and they celebrate it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like ew or anything. Like
Right. They just celebrate
it's
who he
body
is.
positivity. Okay, that's. But no, but seriously, it didn't felt forced. It was, it was actually, it felt very real. It felt very genuine. I didn't feel like any of this movie felt forced or genuine.
No, they
You know?
they have, and they do give you a lot of classic Indiana Jones moments. We know he's a professor in college.
Yep.
This is not a spoiler, I don't think. He's a professor in college, so you see him being a professor in college.
Yeah.
We've seen that in the other movies. It
Yeah.
gives you him doing the things you like seeing him do.
Yep.
It just felt like a natural progression of time. I think the movie could have been a little tighter, a little shorter. It definitely needed more editing. There are a few parts for me where it's a little too much, borderline jumping the shark, but again, leaps and bounds better than
Yeah.
the last Indiana Jones movie, and leaps and bounds better than a lot of other movies that have been coming out recently.
Yeah.
I would recommend this over most of the newer Marvel movies that have come out.
Agreed.
I would recommend this over most of the last few Star Wars movies that have come out.
Yep.
It's there. Again, no movie is going to be perfect, and if you judge this movie against Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Or that you hate Kathleen Kennedy because that's like a hype
Right,
train people like
yeah.
to jump on. You know
then
what?
yeah, you're gonna probably find some faults. You can't compare a movie of Indiana Jones today to the very first one.
Right.
Again, I know Temple of Doom gets a little bit more hate than some of the other movies, but it still has nostalgia to it. I actually really like Last Crusade.
I love Last Crusade.
I love Last Crusade because I think Sean Connery is great in it.
Yeah.
You can't compare this movie to those movies. It's never going to feel the same. And if you go into this movie expecting that, then yeah, you're probably going to be let down. You have to know what you're going to see.
If you walk out of this film going, "Oh, it sucked," then you know what? You didn't even need to see the film. You could have just done a review and lied, read it Wikipedia, or base it off someone else's review and go from there. Read it, you know.
Yeah, I don't
There's
know.
no way you can. There's no way any normal person can walk out of this film and say, "Oh, that was terrible.
No.
That was a 3 out of 10." Oh,
No, it would be crazy to
if
say
you say
that.
that, you got to get a life.
You're looking to
then you're
hate
not a
it.
real film.
No,
you
you're
can't.
looking
not,
to hate the movie if you say
exactly.
That. I left the movie and I didn't say it was great. I didn't say it was great. I said it was fine. It was perfectly acceptable. There's a phrase, everyone always says a phrase online, you see it all the time. Nobody asks for this movie. Nobody asks for any movie.
Yep.
So yeah, you're right. No, nobody asked for this movie. You're 100% right. And was it an unnecessary film? Yeah, we didn't have to have another Indiana Jones movie, and we could have left well enough alone, and that would have been fine. But we're in a world where Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny exists. We have a 5th Indiana Jones movie, and it could have been way worse than what we got. This is a perfectly watchable movie with pieces to enjoy. There are some parts, like I said, that are long and that needed to be edited and maybe would have made a tighter film, but I don't think it deserves the hate these reviews are giving it. It's not it ain't a 10 out of 10, but it ain't a 2 out of 10.
No way. I was going to say, to compare this film, I would say it is on par with another, just to give people a barometer of it, another James Mangold film is The Wolverine. I think they're probably right on par.
Okay.
You know, I think that's the one where Logan fights Weapon X or some shit.
Yeah, there's whatever he fights in that one.
Right.
He goes
I
to
mean,
Japan, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think this movie is actually better than Logan as a whole.
Yeah.
As a whole.
I think
that whole first movie's jumping around here, but Wolverine, the first 75%, that ending kind of kills it. But this movie, I got to say, as a whole, is on that vibe. I honestly think it's rewatchable.
Yeah.
I think if it's online, I think it's worth.
It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah.
If you're not going to go to the theater to watch it, when it starts streaming, you might as well watch it because you're not going to be that disappointed. I would actually say I'd pick this movie over the Wolverine. I'd pick this movie over Logan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
As I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'd probably pick this movie over Logan.
Whoa, see, that's a really good, because I think Logan is an excellent film. Excellent film.
And it does, once again, show how James Mangold writes movies and respects characters that are older in age with the main characters.
Ooh, yes, with Patrick Stewart.
If you want to compare it to that, where Logan is older in that movie, Professor X in that movie is definitely an older character, and he still treats those characters with respect. So that's a running trend maybe in some James Mangold movies. I think this movie is more rewatchable than Logan was. I would say that.
Okay.
Yeah,
right,
and that's not to hate on Logan.
No, not at all.
But
I think, like I said, this is a movie I recommend. Yeah, I think it's on par with, because The Wolverine isn't a bad movie. I know I kind of picked on that ending, but that movie's really fine. I think Wolverine's like a 7.5 out of 10. I would probably give this movie, if I had to give it a numerical number, I would honestly give it like a 7. I would
probably give it
maybe like a 7. Really,
I'd probably give this movie somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7. Indie hats out of 10.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
really
not
a bad film. I think another thing, just to highlight, and you talked about it before, about how things are missing in film. Like you said, like villains. Like, this is the bad guy, not this redeemable baloney or sympathizing crap. Know what really missed? Know what sounded so exquisite? The soundtrack. The soundtrack. PJ, how did it? I mean, we talked about this before. How films today, they just eliminated themes.
Yeah.
It's just vanished for the past
probably
15
score.
years now.
This has a score.
Yep.
And the minute you're watching the movie and you know it's going to come and I was waiting for him. Like, I can't wait. And again, I won't spoil anything. There's an action sequence on a train. That's all I'm going to say. But then it kicks in. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. And you're like, oh my God, it's Indiana Jones. And you see, and again, no spoilers. There's an action scene on a train. And it felt so authentic to Indiana Jones. The theme kicks in at the right minute. It pumps you up.
Right.
You can't wait.
Right. And when the villain comes, you hear like that doom, like
like
that, like it gave it just gravitas.
It was.
And there's like a romance. You could hear like a whimsical thing.
I don't
or like,
know if it was scored by John Williams.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay, because I know they
and
used
he's like,
his
that guy's
theme.
91 years old. God
I know,
bless
yeah,
him.
good for him.
It's just like, this isn't a spoiler. They find, they're going for treasure. So when they, they figure out a clue, whatever, it has
Right.
like that mysticalness. And it just gives so much character to the film. And nowadays, look, Hollywood is nothing but, look, Hollywood, they see a movie that's successful and they copy it, So, I mean, Marvel was huge. Then you have, DC, blah, 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 Sony, blah, blah, blah. The vampire thing was huge, blah, blah. You had the zombie thing, that was big, blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's tons of Quentin Tarantino copycats, everyone's, but, everyone's kind of copied off of, like I said this before, with Hans Zimmer. I love Hans Zimmer, but they've just raped him. These other composers,
they just take his...
but it's not their fault. Sometimes I'm sure the director of the studio is saying, "Hey, you got to make things that go
like Junkie XL."
Right? Yeah, you get the Inception horns in there blaring, and also when they make movies now, they use digitally, and then they're using temp music, so they're using something there temporarily, and they cut it to that, and then the composer comes in and they go, "Well, just use that," or they end up writing something similar. But this movie. Wow, how good it is. It just made the film. We missed that. I miss opening credits. and I miss villains.
Scores.
I miss bad guys. And I miss good guys. That's it. Very black and white.
I will give you a perfect example. Because you mentioned Hans Zimmer and we talk about John Williams. Right now, if I told anyone to just hum the Superman theme,
right,
they can hum the 1978 Superman theme. Bum, 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 bum. Everyone knows it. Can you even begin to sing or hum the Superman theme from Man of Steel by Hans Zimmer? No.
Can you do Iron Man?
Well,
you can't count.
No,
you can't count Black Sabbath.
No.
The Avengers is really, I think, that's Alan Silvestri, the guy who did Back to the Future.
I was gonna say you could do that.
But that's the only one.
Yeah.
That's the only one you get because exactly you got a composer who's from old school.
Yeah.
But you have all these Marvel heroes, and not one of them has
No. And I think that's just the comparison to someone like a John Williams who makes a score, because that's apples to apples. That's a Superman score to a Superman score.
Yep.
One is iconic and memorable. How many years ago was 1978? I can't even do the math.
I don't know.
I can't even do the math in my head.
Right, like
40 something years ago?
44 years, somewhere around there.
And you can remember that today. Man of Steel came out, 2 days ago, and you can't remember the score.
Maybe like 10 years ago, maybe?
It's not that long ago.
2013, maybe?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
But you can't remember the score, but you can remember the iconic one, and I think that just goes to show what the importance of a good musical score is.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that they went back to this and kept that Indiana Jones theme. I think the Indiana Jones theme is the best musical score in movies for a character. Just being iconic. I think his
and it
theme is
feels
the best.
adventurous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it really does.
You feel it, and it just adds so much to the film. It's like I said, it's like another character, and
Yeah.
that's John Williams' talent. And that's not a knock at Hans Zimmer. Hans
No,
Zimmer's
no,
amazing for what he does, but
he doesn't do what John Williams does.
right, and he does, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I think the rest of the industry right now is like everyone loves Hans Zimmer. Let's jump on the bandwagon and copy him.
You're never going to be able to duplicate the talent of a John Williams. I mean, if there are so many great composers out there, but you're never going to top John Williams. I think the only person that maybe comes close, and this isn't disrespect to any of these other composers out there, I think maybe Danny Elfman is maybe the closest person be considered in the same sort of category as a John Williams, and even that's pushing it. There's no disrespect to any of these other composers. There's just some people that are born to do something, and that guy found what he was born to do, which was compose beautiful pieces of art for movies.
And another thing I just want to talk about too, I'm just curious for how you thought about it. I like the jokes in this film.
Yeah.
They weren't like forced. They weren't like, they didn't do like jokes that are like, they didn't do like a meme joke in a movie that takes place in the 60s. Like it felt the jokes felt very timeless and in the time period.
So Indiana Jones in all of the movies has always sort of had those quips, those one-liners, like no ticket, that whole thing. And it had that feel to it where it felt very much like Indiana Jones just being charmy, being snarky, being himself, and it delivered very well by someone who understands his character.
Yep.
I think it was Kathleen Kennedy, it may have been some other executive or producer from Disney, said they will not make an Indiana Jones movie with somebody else playing Indiana Jones.
Okay.
They said if Indiana Jones is in the movie, it has to be Harrison Ford. I don't know if that means they won't reboot it ever, or that means they won't continue this current. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think it's very fair of them to say no one else can be Indiana Jones. And again, this if you go back to the Solo movie, which is actually another movie that gets more hate than it deserves. Solo was a very watchable movie. That poor dude had to follow.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I'm never gonna think of his name.
Yeah,
so
I
I'm not
can.
gonna- Aiden Aldrich or something. I don't even know if I'm close. He's that poor sap had to be Han Solo after Harrison Ford's Han Solo, and you can't.
Right.
You can't.
You just reminded me too. In this film, this Dial of Destiny. Remember Logan? I don't remember the name. One of the henchmen. He had like a mechanical hand.
Yeah.
He was in this movie. He was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was one of the main henchmen. He was very
Oh.
good in this too. I thought
Good
he
for
brought
him.
a good. Villains.
Mm-hmm.
The bad guys felt like the bad guys, and I think, like I said, in terms of like the jokes and the tone, all of it was on par. And like I said, you're not gonna get jokes or like a line like I don't know which X-Men it was. X-Men, maybe the one with the Phoenix in
What
it.
happens when a toad gets struck by lightning?
No. That I like that one. Doesn't bother me.
That line
one's
doesn't
fine.
bother you?
Well, yeah, I
Same
mean,
thing that happens to everything
yeah, I don't
else.
care. That one's fine.
All right.
The one that bothers me, I think, is that. Look, that one's corny. Okay, I can laugh at that. This one makes my when things make me cringe. I feel like I'm gonna melt. It's when Jennifer Lawrence says like, "Oh, I'm tired of the girls saving the guys." It should really be called the ex-women.
Oh, Jesus.
Like that exactly.
Yeah.
Folks, don't worry. They don't say nothing like that in this
No.
film. This movie is.
No, they treat every
This movie
character
could have came
fairly.
out probably 20 years ago, and you wouldn't. It feels like it came from there.
No, this movie treats every character fairly. They're all the people that are supposed to be likable are likable. The people that are
Yep.
supposed to be hateable are hateable.
Yep.
There's a short round-esque younger character.
Yep.
That I've said it before. I'm not a big fan of kids in movies, but this kid wasn't bad. He didn't have a lot to do. I don't want to call him a throwaway character, but he didn't have a lot to do.
He didn't have a lot to say.
He didn't have a lot
like
to
literally,
say.
He didn't really have many lines.
He
But he was
wasn't-
fine though.
he was fine. No,
he was
no,
fine. I don't think he's not a really deterrent for the film.
No.
He didn't bring it down at all.
No, he just doesn't bring the. He doesn't bring the charm. He doesn't bring the tone
Yeah.
of a short round.
No way, yeah.
Short round was so likable,
Hey, Dr. Joe, no time for love.
and this kid
That
is.
kid he was one of a kind. That guy. I mean,
Yeah.
Was it Ki Hao Kwan or something? I
Yeah,
don't know. But-
he's. You know what? And this isn't a spoiler because I think everyone knows they didn't bring him back for this movie. There was no short round cameo. It didn't need it. It didn't need it.
I think if they did that, then it would
would
have.
have felt too
It would.
much.
I think it would have. I think it would have went like. But this movie isn't really super heavy on fan service. There's hints
some.
there, but it doesn't feel. It's not like blopping you on the
No,
head with these member berries and all
when
that
he
stuff.
when I don't know if this is a spoiler. I'm just gonna say it. If it's a spoiler,
Right.
I'm sorry. When Salah shows up.
Oh, that's in the.
He's in the trailer, right?
He's in the trailer, yeah.
That's your biggest fan service moment.
Yep.
That's the biggest fan
Yep.
service moment, and it's not even that forced. You just and when you see him, you're happy to see him. It's not
Right.
like you're like, oh, this was no reason for this. They give him a very small part. It's not the most meaningful part, but it moves the plot along. You're happy to see him.
Right.
I think his big line is like, "Give him hell, Indiana Jones," or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's good.
And it's just fun to see him for the few
Yeah.
minutes.
There's the only kind of line I think was cringe, but had this during an action sequence. It's in the trailer anyway. Is when Indiana Jones like yelling at her. He's like, "How did you grow up to be that way or this
Right.
way?" And she goes like, "What? Beautiful, smart, and self-sufficient." Like, okay, all right,
Right.
fine. She had her girl boss moment,
Right.
but that was it.
That's
None
it.
of that is in the rest of the movie. That's the only time
Yeah.
they do it. So. Those who are like allergic to that kind of stuff and that kind of politics.
You don't
you're
have to worry
You're
about
gonna be
it.
fine.
Yeah.
You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it, folks.
So I think what we're saying here is you should watch this movie because it is perfectly fine, plenty to enjoy.
Yep.
You're not gonna be upset that you were in the theater at all for this movie. It has blockbuster movie feel to it.
Yep.
And it has a legit movie star in Harrison Ford. And I've said this before, there are very few movie stars left. There are plenty of actors,
Yeah.
very few movie stars. Harrison Ford is one of the few that are left. And
Yeah.
this movie kind of shows why. He's he can do it all. He can do comedy, he can do serious, he can do romance, he can he can do action, he can do it all, and he does it all believably. And And I like it. So I think what we're saying here is you should see the movie, folks. You should see the movie.
Yeah. I recommend. Like I said, it's if you enjoyed, I'm gonna say I'll use these two Mangold films. If you enjoyed Logan, like if you did that, yeah, for sure. You compared it earlier, but if you liked, I'll say Walk the Line and The Wolverine. If you like those, you will like this film. Absolutely.
But it is now time
Uh-oh.
for an Indiana Jones pop quiz.
Oh my God, I'm nervous.
All right.
I'm not gonna. You definitely know more than me with this. I like these movies, but I'm not gonna be.
I'm
an
a big
expert.
fan of Indiana Jones, but
I'll try my best, PJ.
these aren't incredibly hard.
Right.
I think you'll be able to get. There's only 6 questions. You'll get at least 50% of them, I think. So I'll start with this one. Who was the original choice to play Indiana Jones?
I feel like
You definitely know it. When I say it, you're gonna know it.
I just dropped my Sean Connery.
No. The original choice was Tom Selleck.
Right.
Which is why in Rescue Rangers,
Chip and Dale.
one of them is Indiana Jones and the other is Magnum PI.
Right.
Damn. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Finish the line. It's not the years.
Oh my God.
There's a famous line when they.
I know.
When they basically compare him to being a little bit older.
Right. I don't know, man.
It's not the years. It's the mileage.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Right.
All right. This one's easy.
I'm not gonna be doing right.
And this one's easy. Not the order they were released. Not the
Right.
release order of the movies, but the chronological timeline order of the movies.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it should be Temple of Doom, Raiders, Last Crusade,
Yep.
Crystal Skull, and
Yep.
then the
And
Dial
this
of
one.
Destiny.
Yep.
All right.
All
Okay.
This one, I don't know if you'll know, but I'll give you a hint on this one. There is another actor who played Indiana Jones in canon in the storyline. It's not a reboot. He's just another actor that plays him. Do you know the actor that plays Indiana Jones? And he's in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show.
Oh, I thought I was gonna say Last Crusade. I was gonna say River Phoenix. Isn't he?
Oh yeah, that's not who I was thinking of though. I was
Okay.
talking about the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. He was in Boondock Saints.
The guy who plays Daryl?
No, the other one. The other one.
Oh. I can't think of
Sean
it.
Patrick Flannery.
Right.
All
Right. Damn.
Indiana Jones' real name is Henry Jones Jr. Where does he get the name Indiana from?
Oh my God. I know this. I can't. I'm drawing a blank right now. The pressure's on.
The pressure is on.
I feel like there's a boulder, coming at me and I'm running away from it. The pressure's getting to me. I don't know, man. I can't.
It's the dog. It's his childhood dog. All right, and then this one, I don't know if you'll know. This one doesn't even count really as a good Indiana Jones question. This question is here because it is my second childhood memory of Indiana Jones, aside from the movies. There was a Super Bowl Indiana Jones halftime show, and you remember how in the movie he has to get the
idol?
The idol. Instead of the idol, he has to get the Lombardi trophy in the Super Bowl show.
Oh my God!
And he has to get the trophy, and he runs away, and they have the big rock, the big boulder follow him. What year or Super Bowl number did that take place in?
I don't know, like maybe 1991.
Ooh, you were close. 95.
95.
It was Super Bowl 29. And I know that the 49ers were in that, but I forget who the 49ers played. I just know the 49ers were in it because Joe Montana.
Okay.
So those were my questions. If you've taken the quiz at home and you played along with us, let us know if you did better than Mike did on these Indiana Jones questions.
I have one for you, PJ. I just have one.
All right.
Spielberg, George Lucas originally,
Right.
the original trilogy, blah blah blah. But Spielberg wanted to do this other franchise, and the studio said no. What did he? And he instead did this. He says, "Okay, I'll do this."
Spielberg wanted to do a different franchise, and they wouldn't let him. I'm trying to think what came out around that time.
It's still around today.
It's still around today?
Yeah.
Did Spielberg want to do Star Wars?
No.
I don't know.
It's actually 007. You want to do it, James
Did he
Bond?
really?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do these 007 movies.
Yeah. So I think.
I don't think Spielberg would be the right choice for a 007 movie.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see it.
Obviously,
But-
you have a way different tone.
Yeah,
which
which could be good, but I
Right.
don't see it. But those were my questions.
Right.
Neither one of us did very well on the questions today.
Yeah.
The Indiana Jones questions were a little difficult.
Right. It was a long night. Okay,
It was
we
a
saw,
long night.
We saw a long movie, guys.
Yeah,
okay?
we saw that movie like 4 hours ago. But I think great movie, and it was good to watch it. We haven't seen a movie together in a really long time.
Yeah.
So it was good to go to see a movie with you again. We haven't seen a movie together since we were kids.
Yes.
So
yes,
it was nice to go to see a movie again with you.
Yes,
So
it was
I'm
great.
glad we did this.
Yeah, reconnected. But yeah, folks, thanks for listening. Let us know what you think, and you know the deal. Same time, same table.
Have a good one.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. Please visit PJ and Mike's website, coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com for more information. Follow the boys on all social media apps. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.
गालिमा 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 शक्ति दे